Hi, I'm Rashid. I'll be sharing important updates in Canadian immigration space over the last 2 weeks. A lot has happened, including federal express entry draws, provincial nomination updates, new financial requirements for study permits, and even changes to the language testing for PR. If you have questions, you can drop them in the comments. I will try my best to answer them at the end of this video or after it. So let's get started. There were two express entry related rounds of invites last week. The first one was a provincial nomination round with only 192 invitations and a CRS score of 800. This was the 15th PNP round of invites this year, and so far only 6,470 invites have been sent versus 15,483 in all of last year's 14 round of invites. So fewer people are getting invited through PNPs. For context, in the 2025 to 2027 immigration levels plan, IRCC decreased the PNB quota by 50% from a target of 110,000 people in 2024 to 55,000 in 2025. You can clearly see the impact of this reduction with the high scores and fewer number of invites. There was the very next day, on August 19th, IRCC held a larger category based draw for healthcare and social services candidates. This time, 2,500 invitations were issued with a much lower cutoff of 470 points. This is the lowest we've seen in healthcare draw this year. And this was the fourth healthcare round of invites for this year. So far, 7,500 healthcare and social services professionals have been invited, and if you contrast this with French round of invites this year, 21,000 francophones have been invited already. So apparently IRCC has been told that we need more francophones, especially outside of Quebec, more than healthcare professionals. So that's why we're seeing this trend. IRCC also made an update on study permit requirements. Starting September 1st of this year, applicants will face a higher financial proof of financial standards. When you apply for a Canadian study permit, as per Section 220 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations, you're supposed to show the visa officer that you can fully cover your tuition, cost of transportation to Canada, and living expenses without relying on part time work in Canada. So, even though you can work 24 hours per week while you're studying, you should have enough money to cover your costs without having to work. And IRCC has now increased this cost of living requirement by almost $2,200. You now need to show $22,895 on top of the tuition fee and transportation costs. For a family of three, this requirement is even higher, $35,000. And for context, a couple of years ago, this cost used to be $10,200. So on the one hand, IRCC is increasing certain requirements and making it difficult to get the study permit. And on the other hand, they are refusing more visas as well. And I will share more on that just in a few minutes. Moving on to the provincial nomination updates, between August 7th and 15th, Alberta also made headlines with three provincial draws, one of which turned out to be the largest of the year. Through the Alberta Opportunity Stream, 581 candidates were invited with a minimum score of 70. On top of that, Alberta extended 102 invitations to healthcare workers across both its express entry and non express entry healthcare pathways. Altogether, that's 683 invitations in just over a week. Alberta has now issued 3,251 nominations this year out of their total allocation of 4,875. So that leaves about 1,600 spots still available for the rest of the year. But while these numbers may look promising, competition is intense. Nearly 64,000 expression of interests are sitting in Alberta's pool right now. So only 2.5% of the people who are ready and waiting might be successful in obtaining Alberta's nomination this year. And we're talking about Alberta here, not Ontario, which is even more popular than Alberta for immigrants. Moving on to the west coast of Canada. Just 4 days later, on August 19th, BC held its sixth entrepreneur focused draw of this year. No more than 16 invitations were issued, 11 under the base stream, and fewer than 5 under the regional stream. The cutoff scores were 124 and 115. So far this year, BC has invited 70 entrepreneurs, almost 70, um, and all of their round of invites has been through these two pathways, entrepreneur pathways. And what's interesting is that aside from a single skilled worker draw back in May, the province has concentrated almost exclusively on entrepreneurs this year. Going further northwest, on August 21st, Yukon shared some important news about its PNP. The territory received 67 additional nomination spots for 2025, bringing its total allocation to 282. This was a welcome boost, especially after earlier federal cuts, because their allocation was also reduced by half. With carryover applications and withdrawals taken into account, Yukon now has around 80 invitations left to issue this month, and priority is being given to candidates who have lived or studied in Yukon, French speaking applicants, and those who hold a special work permit. In addition, Yukon has set aside 10 dedicated spots for healthcare workers available until September 20th. So while Yukon's program is much smaller than most provinces, this increase represents more opportunities for candidates who align closely with Yukon's local needs and priorities. Okay, on August 21st, Manitoba ran its 17th immigration draw of the year. This one was aimed at skilled workers. They issued 77 invitations with a cutoff score of 612, and 18 of those went to folks in express entry. What stood out here is the focus on Manitoba's strategic recruitment initiatives. That's where employers communicate and help find, that's where employers basically, not only employers, but communities also help find the talent that they need through their recruitment initiatives. So that has been a focus as well. Most invitations went out to regional communities and francophone candidates, followed by ethnocultural communities and employer services. It wasn't a huge draw, but the message is clear. Manitoba is using immigration strategically, not just to boost their numbers, but to strengthen specific communities and industries that have ongoing labor shortages. Now, flying all the way to the east coast of Canada, there's also news from Prince Edward Island. And by the way, do you know Canada is so big that we have six time zones in our country, each with a difference of about 1 hour. Anyhow, PEI ran its eighth PNP draw of this year and issued 132 invitations through their labor impact and express entry streams. As usual, PEI targeted in demand sectors like healthcare, skilled trades, manufacturing, and international graduates from the University of PEI and their two colleges. Year to date, that brings PEI to 792 invitations. Almost all are under labor impact and express entry, with just one under the work permit stream. So, if you look at the big picture, PEI keeps prioritizing people who are already part of their community and working in priority sectors rather than spreading invitations across a bunch of streams. Moving back to the prairies, there's an update from Saskatchewan. Ottawa just gave the province 1,136 extra PNP spots, bringing the 2025 total allocation to 4,761 spots. Most of these are being aimed at sectors with biggest shortages: healthcare, agriculture, and skilled trades. Up to a quarter of these new spots are earmarked for trucking, food services, and retail. Even with the bump, the overall allocation is still lower than the past year. So competition stays tight, especially in high demand jobs. On the other hand, it's getting harder to immigrate to Canada. At the same time, refusal rates are climbing across nearly all temporary residence and PR categories, adding another layer of uncertainty for applicants. Study permits have been hit the hardest, with refusals now at about 65% this year. And visitor visas are also being refused at around 50% refusal rate. So that's like flip of a coin. And if you compare the trend from 2023, 24, and this year, the refusal rate has increased in almost all categories. For example, for family class, which includes spouses as well as parents, sponsorship, it has reached a refusal rate of 12.6% this year. So one out of eight people, even though they may be eligible, they get refused. And this was 8.4% last year and 7.2% in 2023. Similarly, HNC, humanitarian and compassionate applications, have reached a refusal rate of 40%. Even economic class, which includes express entry, PNP, Atlantic immigration program, startup visas, even that has a refusal rate of 6.7% for this year. But it's not all bleak. There is a positive update as well. Now IRCC will accept TOEFL Essentials language exam along with IELTS, CELPIP, and PTE for express entry, Atlantic immigration programs, and some PNPs. And this test is shorter. I haven't written it myself, but it's about 90 minutes. It covers reading, writing, listening, speaking, obviously, and includes a short personal video statement as well. The results are faster too. Listening and reading scores show up right away, and official results usually land in under a week. All right, so that's the roundup. Big takeaways: tighter PNP numbers, provinces targeting people already in their communities, higher study permit refusals, and TOEFL Essential adds a faster English test option. I'm staying on for Q&A now. If you're watching the replay of the video, drop your question in the comments. I will try my best to read and respond to reasonable questions. If you want case specific advice, one-on-one help, you can scan the QR code or follow the link in the description to schedule a call with me. Hit like, subscribe if you found this to be useful. Let's see if there are any questions. There is a question. Please tell me and give information about LMIA, how much it costs from India or within Canada. So the problem with LMIA, I have a whole video on LMIA. The thing is, the cost of LMIA itself is $1,000, depending on what type of LMIA it is, whether that's PR supporting or for a work permit. The cost itself is very less, as you can imagine, just 1,000 Canadian dollars. Yes, if someone is filing this LMIA for you, they might charge, two, three, four, five, $6,000, but they are not supposed to charge the applicant this money. This fee is supposed to be paid by the employer, and that is the biggest issue with LMIAs. People are selling LMIAs. They're making candidates, applicants pay 30, 40, 50,000, $100,000 just so they can get an LMIA based job. So I hope this answers your question. You, as the candidate, are not supposed to pay any fee for the LMIA, regardless of your country of citizenship or residence. Uh, Sarfraz said, I got the Canadian visa. Congratulations. That's great news. If you visit Canada, let me know and maybe we can meet up. Okay, I think that's all the comments. Let me just double check one more time and then I can end the live stream. All right, I think we have addressed the questions. There's a question from Erica. Is it important to attach a cover letter for refusal cases? If that's what's if if it's what's important points to mention there. Right. So Erica, it depends on what kind of visa we're talking about. Cover letter is usually important for all visa applications, whether that's a PR application or a temporary residence visa, study permit, work permit. You should always attach a cover letter because that gives you an opportunity to summarize your application. Because you might attach certain documents to show proof of funds. There might be some documents that show that your purpose of visit or purpose of studying in Canada is legitimate. There might be some documents that show ties to your country of residence. And the cover letter summarizes everything in one place. So it could be a couple of pages, it could be more, but you should definitely use a cover letter. And if your application has already been refused once, it's very important to attach a cover letter because you should address the refusal reasons from the last application. These days, IRCC is sharing officers' decision notes or ODNs. If your application was older, you can request visa officers' notes by making an ATIP request. People also call it the GCMS notes. So you should look at those notes. Sometimes they're useful, sometimes they're not, and address those refusal reasons in your cover letter. You should attach more documents and you should also clearly address those refusal reasons. What I also do is I cite relevant cases from the Federal Court of Canada. That in this case, the judge looked at the circumstances, and this is what they said. So that really helps. And if you can cite cases from the Supreme Court, like Vavilov is a case that is very helpful. It is binding on everyone, like on the visa officers. They have to make reasonable decisions, and that case tells what is a reasonable decision. So to answer your question, you should definitely attach a cover letter. You should address the refusal reasons from the last application. You should address all the strengths from your current application, your proof of finances, your ties, your purpose of visit, and all the additional documents that you have attached, whether that's an IELTS certificate, um, your application forms that you've used, upfront medical, passport. You should mention I've paid the fee. So all of those things should be mentioned in a cover letter. All right. So I think that is all the questions. Let me just check if someone still has any more. Hello, Zulkarnain. If you have a question, you can let me know. Okay, we have a question from Rafi. I am from Bangladesh. What is the scope for engineering student in Bangladesh? Is job tough to find? I guess you mean scope of a Bangladeshi engineering student in Canada. And what is scholarship as a CSE student? All right. So, Rafi, in terms of scope for engineering student, do you mean to Study. Okay. So if you are a fresh engineer, I'm assuming you're a fresh engineer or you're an engineering student who'll be graduating soon, and you want to come to Canada. I think if you want to come here for um, to work, it's better to get some experience within your country, because first of all, without gaining work experience, you will not have enough points. Even with 3 years of work experience, where your points in Canadian Express entry system are maximum, even that is not good enough to get you to Canada, because the minimum score required is higher than that. So unless you have maybe a master's degree in engineering along with 3 years of work experience, and you have a good French language scores, you cannot immigrate directly from Bangladesh. Like, it's very, very difficult. The other possibility is maybe you have a very niche kind of work experience and you find a job either with an LMIA or an LMIA exempt job, like through the Atlantic program or rural community immigration pilot, something like that. Otherwise, it's just hard to come. And if you're talking about coming here to study, again, just as I mentioned earlier, proof of finances are very important. Canadian government is expecting more and more from candidates now. So on top of the tuition fee, they expect you to pay 22,000. They expect you to have 22,000 in terms of living expenses, as well as the cost of going to Canada and coming back. So you have to show that you have that kind of money. And in terms of scholarships, yes, there are some scholarships, but most of them are for students who are pursuing research. For example, if you're doing masters by research in engineering, you have to find a supervisor first who's willing to fund your research, and that can be a long process. Whereas if you come here for coursework only, it's easier to get admission, but again, you don't have any funding, right? So that's one of the challenges. I hope that answers your question. Let me see if there are any more. You're welcome, America. Okay, so follow-up question from Rafi is Canada currently very tough for us to live? My uncle lives there. He says me to go to Australia or UK. I can't comment on Australia or UK. I think from the news it seems like they're also going through some tough times. But having said that, I think if you have the skills, for example, you've gained some good experience, engineering experience, whether that's in manufacturing or consumer goods or another sector, oil and gas. If you've had a good experience, what you could simply do is check if you have jobs for your sector in Canada before coming, right? So just go on LinkedIn, go on indeed.ca, see if you type your job title, how many jobs show up, and look at the requirements for those jobs. So that is kind of like an easy test that you can do, a quick litmus test to see what the conditions are. Because at the end of the day, if you can find a job in your field, and for engineers, it can very easily be it easily starts from like 70,000, 80,000 if you have some experience. So if you can find that kind of a job, I think at least for one person you can start your life here, right? And gradually you can improve your skills. Maybe you can study more, you can gain more skills and get promoted or switch employers to find a better job. So I don't think we can make a blanket statement that things are very bad and no one should come here. Canada does need certain professionals, right? There is a big demand for healthcare professionals, social services professionals. There are jobs in the construction sector. There are jobs for educators. So it really depends. I think as a rule of thumb, if you were someone who was able to find good jobs, let's say jobs in multinational companies in your country, I've experienced that such people are also able to find good jobs in Canada, right? So Zulkarnain's question is, can you tell me the visa possibility of master's student in University of Alberta in agricultural, food, and business management with 5 years experience as a lab technician in a university? Okay, Zulkarnain. So the the general rule of thumb, the general formula that you have to apply is, how will this course or this program, this master's degree, help you in your career? Because um, when you apply for a study permit, you have to submit a one-page study plan, especially for candidates from Pakistan, which I think you might be from Pakistan or even from India. There is a requirement that you have to submit that study plan, and in that one-page study plan, this is different from your submission letter or cover letter. You have to clearly explain, why are you pursuing this program in Canada? Why aren't you pursuing something similar in your country of residence? And why does it make sense for you? What are your future career plans? So, if you can explain very clearly what the benefit of this program is for you in your future career, for example, how it will help you in your country of residence, whether that's for a future job or business, or how it will help you grow. And if you can also kind of try to explain why Canada, like you don't have to do it in every study plan, but sometimes it's helpful to explain why Canada, why University of Alberta, and why this program in particular. Like, why don't you want to go to the UK, or why not go to the US, right? So why Canada? If you can clearly explain this, and your circumstances also support this, for example, you have enough money to afford this program, and either your past experience as a lab technician matches with this, or your future career plan aligns with this program, and you can explain why you're pivoting your career. Like, if you're working as a lab technician now, why do you want to move and work in the agri food and business management sector? Like, what's the reason? Maybe there's someone in your family, maybe you've seen growth in job opportunities in this field, maybe you saw a business opportunity, because often people in agri food and business sectors can work with big consumer goods companies like Nestle, right, to provide them services. So whatever that reason is, you have to explain it very clearly. And if, based on your explanation, the visa officer also believes that that sounds reasonable, that you have reasons to go back to your country and pursue these plans, then it should be approved, right? Because University of Alberta is a good university. But having said that, as you saw, the study permit refusal rate is more than 60%. Sometimes it is for good reasons. The applicants, their profile is just not good enough. They should be refused. And other times, you've done everything right, but the visa officer simply makes an unreasonable decision. So if that happens, that decision should be challenged, right? So there's a process for that. Whether you reapply, you request reconsideration, or you file a judicial review, those are the three options. But that's kind of like the whole roadmap. I hope that answers your question. Okay, Rafi saying Canada's time is going so bad, I don't want to risk it. Uh, sure, it's your personal choice. Again, Rafi, I think if you're doing good in your country, like if you have a good job, you should continue doing that job. You should have more work experience, at least 3 years. If you want to come here to study, I think at least 1 year. Have at least 1 year of full time work experience, because when you apply for Canadian experience class, so hopefully you come here, you study, you gain Canadian experience, and then you apply through CEC. If you have that 1 year of foreign work experience, um, in knock 0, 1, 2, or 3, that really helps boost your score in express entry. So, but again, you're an engineer. I would suggest look at the stats, look at the numbers, see how many jobs are available, and don't just believe what others say, right? Like, do your own research. Okay. Is there any other question? Okay, let me check the other platforms. AA Yarn, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, or Iron. Hello, I wanted to ask about HNC, Humanitarian and Compassionate Grounds. We have 8 months remaining for the expiration of my closed work permit. Can I apply for HNC? Um, what is the reason for you to apply for HNC? As HNC, Humanitarian and Compassionate Grounds, are only to be used in exceptional circumstances. If you faced some kind of undue hardship, right? So I'm not just talking about hardship, but undue and disproportionate hardship. And in fact, if you'll face even more hardship if you have to go back to your country of residence for some reason, then maybe agency could be a possibility. But someone who's been here as a temporary worker who hasn't spent a lot of time in Canada, it's hard to convince the visa officer that you can't just leave and go back, right? They'll think like, why can't this person go back to their country? They've been living there for many years, so why are they requesting HNC? So HNC is a very difficult application to get approved. You should apply it very carefully only if you're really eligible for that. Like, there are people in truly terrible circumstances who apply for HNC and they get accepted. It's not just for anyone who's looking to extend their stay or finding just any reasons to stay in Canada as a PR. Hardik Patel, Mr. Hardik Patel says, my score is 512. Any chance this year? Hardik, it depends on what your occupation is. Are you a CEC applicant by any chance? I think there is always a chance. If you have a score more than 510 in that range, there's always a chance, but it's hard to predict for sure. Okay, is there any other question? All right, Erica. I got a refusal for post grad in nursing, leadership, and healthcare management, stating that the proposed study is redundant and not aligning to career progression. I've completed BSc in nursing. I personally feel like it's aligning to my previous education, in my opinion. Yeah, Erica, it does seem like studying postgrad in nursing leadership and healthcare management would be the next step for you if you want to take on a leadership position, if you want to take a management position, especially if you've completed BSc nursing and if you've had nursing experience as well. So, if you have nursing experience and you want to pursue more education in nursing, I think it is reasonable. Again, a lot also depends on how you explained the purpose of studying in Canada. What did you write in your study plan? Were you very clear on the reasons and the benefits of pursuing this education? If you did everything right, like you explained things clearly, you had reasonable finances to cover the cost of this education. Remember, tuition fee, cost of living, cost of traveling to Canada and coming back, that's a lot of money, right? But if you had this money, if you explained this clearly in your application, then the refusal does seem unreasonable. But if these things were not explained clearly to the visa officer, then they might be right. So I would suggest apply again with a more clear application, explain things very clearly, attach as much supporting evidence as possible. And if it is still refused, then you can consider one of the three options I mentioned earlier. So you're already reapplying, maybe reconsideration, or better yet, a judicial review. Rafi, as a computer science student, I always want to go to Canada for my master's, and my half of family live there. They told me time is going bad for Canada, so Australia. Look, Rafi, if you have a 70% scholarship in Australia and your plan is to just get education, go for it. If you're looking for a place to settle and you're confused about Canada versus Australia, it's something that you have to consider. I think if you're good in computer science, yes, there have been a lot of layoffs in North America. There's no doubt about that. But I still see good computer science professionals, computer engineers, people in this sector broadly. I still see them getting good jobs. Sometimes it takes longer than expected, but they do end up getting jobs. So if you're someone who knows what you're doing, if you're good at what you do, I don't think it's a terrible time for computer scientists to move to Canada. I think it's a good time. An SAT exam is mainly for bachelor's level degrees, right? So you're coming here for postgraduate. All right. Zulkarnain's follow up comment is, and I recently completed my bachelor's of business administration degree, BBA, and have certification in food safety and hygiene, like HACCP. Okay, and name and publications. So I guess, Zulkarnain, in your case, you can connect. Like I do see a connection between business administration, because again it's business administration, and doing some sort of masters in agribusiness. Again, you're transitioning from general business knowledge to agribusiness, and you also have a certification. HACCP is a good useful certification. So I think if you can connect it all together in your study plan, like why does this make sense? How will you exactly use this education in the future, this Canadian education? Explain it clearly. Um, it could work. One thing that I suggest to applicants is your study plan should be like your sales pitch to your best friend. If you're telling your best friend, this is my reason to come to Canada, and they laugh at you, it means it's not good enough, right? So you have to write a convincing sales pitch, a convincing study plan. What is your reason to come to Canada? And if you can convince your friends, if you can convince your family members, chances are you might also be able to convince your visa officer. But again, if your arguments are so weak that people around you are not convinced, then it's even harder to convince a visa officer who's looking at dozens of application every single day, right? And they have like 6 to 7 minutes to review each application, and they have to make their decision quick. So that's what I would say about that. Do we have any more questions? Hardik Patel, you're a store supervisor with a score of 512. In your field, I would also suggest, I know it's easier said than done, but look at jobs in rural communities. Ontario's rural communities, not really rural, but like communities like Sudbury, Thunder Bay, etc., and communities in other provinces, as well as the Atlantic immigration program, because you do have a good experience, and if you can get a similar job offer from one of these programs, RCIP or AIP, you can bypass express entry and apply directly for PR. Again, I know easier said than done, but something to consider. Right. Question from Global Conflict Update. That's an interesting username. Hello, big fan here from Pakistan. Hello, thank you for watching the videos. I hope you find them to be helpful. What is the job scenario situation for vet doctors wanting to move from Pakistan? Your thoughts, please. So, I think the biggest thing is, first of all, because you are a vet, you have some advantage that other people don't have, right? You qualify for express entry healthcare rounds. So, and the good thing about express entry is you don't need your license before immigrating. You can come here as a permanent resident, then get your license, and then start practicing. So that's the good thing. Um, in terms of demand, I think vets are in a lot of demand. There are a lot of people in Canada who have pets. Pets are like family members. People spend quite a bit of money looking after their pets for their vaccinations, for their treatment. So it is a in demand profession. So if you can come here, you can get your if you can get your license, I think definitely it's a very good professional to be in. The other thing is, let's say if you do come here as a vet, and after living here, after seeing the culture, your interests change. You like some other field, maybe a similar healthcare related occupation. Maybe you even want to be self-employed. There's so many opportunities, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just being overly optimistic, but in North America, in Canada, I think if you are good at what you do, if you put in the effort to learn something, learn some skill, I think you can make a living out of almost any profession, right? You could be self-employed even. So yeah, I would encourage you to move. Honestly, freedom of speech. How can I talk to you? So again, there is if you just scan this QR code, or if you go to my website, there is a link to book a call. You can book a consultation call with me, and we can have a more detailed one-on-one conversation. Okay, I'm here. If you have any more questions. All right, guys. I hope you found this session to be helpful. I'll try to do more sessions, maybe every couple of weeks, or whenever there is an important or major update from IRCC that I need to share with you. You can also subscribe to the newsletter on my website, because that enables you to get those updates quickly. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Take care.